wizards, demons, possession, and triggering multiple global wars and genocide. Welcome to Karazhan, home to none other than Medivh and one of the singular most iconic locations because it kickstarted the lore of Warcraft as we know it. Everything from demons to the Burning Legion, the Orcish Horde, the first two Warcraft games and more. But it was never an important location in Classic despite feeling like it should have been. Something that we deserve but was taken away from us. And this was due to deadlines because Karazhan was meant to be in Classic but they ran out of time. Developer manpower and other things just became more important and Karazhan was denied to the Classic player base. But we did get it in the Burning Crusade though. But imagine how much funner it would have been if it was in vanilla, if they had time to finish it like they imagined in the beginning. Or better question, imagine how much more amazing vanilla would have been if they had finished all their side quests and objectives. Anyway, this video is about Karazhan, and more specifically Karazhan Crypts, which we have been teased with, and unlike the Scarlet Crusade teaser at BlizzCon, we the player base will not be denied a delve into the sex dungeon belonging to none other than World of Warcraft's most powerful sorcerer. Going back, this all started in 2023 at BlizzCon when during the announcement of Season of Discovery they leaked Karazhan Crypts by, in quotation marks, accident. Everyone went wild, well at least those of us invested in conspiracy theories did.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The tantalizing lore, new loot, completely original bosses and ideas and more combined make Karazhan Crypts honestly probably the singular most hyped thing for Season of Discovery. Aside from maybe an official announcement for Classic Plus, that is. Maybe a BlizzCon 2024? Nonetheless, Karazhan Crypts is a location that is accessible in essentially every version of Classic. A quick run to Karazhan and Deadwind Pass, a jot through the cemetery, and a death skip right outside what would be the entrance at Morgan's plot, and then boom, you're inside. And it opens up with a beautiful but eerie deepness, almost like entering a graveyard at night, by yourself in a foreign country. The first room you enter though is called the Well of the Forgotten, and it's a small shrine in a well that leads down to the deepest area in the crypts called the Pit of Criminals. The pathway down though is called Pauper's Walk. It's an eerie and winding passageway leading deeper and deeper into crypts below Karazhan. Despite having a few winding paths, they all interconnect to bring you back to the first main area, simply called Crypt. The crypt is filled with small rooms gated by doors where if you hover your mouse over them, they simply display the tooltip doodad wrought iron door with different numbers. Inside these rooms are plates, which makes one wonder what the raid mechanic or dungeon mechanic for this place was meant to be. Another interesting and eerie thing to know about the crypt area is that if you turn the volume up, you can hear a heart beating slowly. But then you go further in, deeper and deeper down Pauper's Walk until you reach another area whose name is still Crypt. This place likely did have another name but never had it finished. This large area has two possible directions you can head in, but the place which I will call Crypt 2 is home to large dirt pits, and they are either a mass grave for hundreds from some ancient and unnamed event, or it's the grave of a few large creatures, two to be exact. Moving on though, one of the paths will take you through water, making you swim underwater and across dozens of bodies tied to chains in a horrific but intriguing sight. What was Medivh doing down here? Why are these people chained like this? The location itself is called the Upside Down Sinners, and it's what most people have seen or heard of when it comes to Karazhan Crypts. It's a horrifying location and makes one wonder if there was a boss meant to be here or if it was just meant to unnerve you as a player, though an underwater monstrosity as a boss could have been interesting. Yet as you move through the Upside Down Sinners, you come across a small room that is a dead end with a rather interesting name, the Slough of Despair. And yes, it's spelled D-I-S, not D-E-S. This pair, unlike the word despair, means to separate a pair, whereas despair means the loss or absence of hope. This had to be an intentional design choice for such a location, because the translation of the name would mean swamp of separation, or shedding, removing, peeling of separation. I think this room was meant to be where Medivh experimented with an attempt to remove Sargeras from his body, preventing the first war between the orcs and the humans. At least perhaps that was what it was meant to be. Or perhaps I'm reaching like an absolute degenerate trying to find meaning in nothing. Moving on though, the second place you can access from the Upside Down Sinners is an area called the Tome of the Unrepentant, and it's one step closer to the deepest part of the crypt. The Tome of the Unrepentant is a large pool and a rather still and silent location. It shouldn't be as eerie as some of the other locations, but in my opinion, it's the lack of darkness that makes this place even eerier than it would be otherwise. The Tome of the Unrepentant can also be accessed from the floor above if you choose to skip the swimming. You pass some locked doors and pathways, seeing crypts almost like a mausoleum. We can clearly see that aside from the pathing and terrain, the deeper part of the crypt remains unfinished. They had ideas here about things that could be, horrors beyond comprehension. That then leaves us with the deepest part of the crypt, with a name as eerie as the location called the Pit of Criminals, a large room with a small pool of water and a giant pile of bones in the corner. It's this pile of bones that you land on if you jump through the hole in the Well of the Forgotten, which makes me wonder if you were meant to clear your way up instead of down. Perhaps you were meant to make your way out through a series of horrors, puzzles, and monstrosities, a reverse of most raids, where instead of delving deeper for loot and treasure, we fight for our life and future by defeating the enemies that stop us from escaping. Just a small theory though. Now though, that brings us on to Season of Discovery and the tease at BlizzCon 2023 in the very bright future of this game mode. Not only is Karazhan Crypts a finished instance aside from mobs and some props for maximum eeriness, it's very easy to access and should be quite easy for the developers to turn into a giant and amazing raid for the player base to have fun with and access. So let's dive into it and see what kinds of bosses they could add and the way the raid would be separated into sections. There are 8 major locations, and they are Well of the Forgotten, Pauper's Walk, Crypt 1, Crypt 2, the Upside Down Sinners, the Slow of Despair, Tome of the Unrepentant, and the Pit of Criminals. And these 8 locations have space for up to 8 or even 10 bosses if they want. Now I'm going to go through this upcoming section a bit quickly, so let's dive into hypotheticals. The Pauper's Walk would likely be the first boss, or perhaps a slime creature or a large skeleton, or maybe even something similar to Patchwork as a roaming creature that you have to defeat to unlock the way into the crypts. Crypt 1 would likely be a puzzle or timing based boss similar to the very first boss of Blackwing Lair, Razorgore the Untamed. Trigger the trap plates, making the boss attackable and likely taking 1 to 5 plates depending on the DPS of the raid. Then we have Crypt 2, which would likely be a dragon of some sort. Considering the lore and game, it would not surprise me that there was a dragon buried underneath Karazhan, so Medivh had access to dragon resources for crafting and spells. I'm not sure how hard this fight would be, but it would be a fun fight getting to defeat an undead dragon. It could also be a giant of some sort too. The next location may or may not have a boss, as I don't think underwater combat is fun. No matter what the devs of any game try, not counting Subnautica, I have not had fun in any underwater combat experience in essentially any game. But if there was a boss in the Upside Down Sinners, I assume it has to be some kind of tentacle creature, something out of hentai to make you uninstall the game. Moving on from the unsavory boss idea, we have the Slow of Despair, where I think we sort of fight an essence or shade of Medivh, perhaps even the essence or shade of Sargeras of sorts. A demon encounter or a spirit encounter with some lore explaining that Medivh, trying his best, could not separate Sargeras from himself and could not avoid triggering the many catastrophes that he started. Which then brings us to the Tome of the Unrepentant, where I think we get a multi-boss encounter, maybe even something similar to the 4 Horsemen from Naxxramas. Demons or spirits shackled by Medivh that we have to defeat in some form or another. And then we have the Pit of Criminals, and this is where I think we get some new lore history, perhaps something related to Xal'atath and the War Within. The shadowy figure and crafting questlines in Scene of Discovery seem to be related to Xal'atath anyway, so it might make sense to discover something in relation to the old gods here. But that's the raid in a nutshell. Now when it comes to design loot, we may even get the first legendary here, perhaps even something for casters, so that when Molten Core comes out, melee gets Sulfurous and Thunder Fury, and casters aren't left to wait till Nax to get theirs. Now, will the developers do Karazhan Crypts? Yes. Will it be in Season of Discovery? I hope to God yes, because they teased us, they promised us, and they must deliver upon this. Plus, nothing would hype up Season of Discovery more than a completely brand new location, raid and ID that is not a rework of an existing place. The attention and hype Season of Discovery would receive from having Karazhan Crypts would be titanic. People would come from all versions of WoW, people that quit in the past, people that have quit before, people that have quit years ago. Everybody would come back for this. And it would make sense to do Karazhan Crypts before Molten Core as well, since Molten Core needs to be redesigned down to a 20-man, whereas Karazhan Crypts can be built up from the ground into a 20-man. The devs have already shown us that they're quite capable of making new bosses and encounters that are fun, interactive, and challenging all at once. But this is why I think Karazhan Crypts is coming to Season of Discovery, and this is why I am excited for it. Subscribe if you like conspiracies, subscribe if you hate conspiracies, subscribe if you want a conspiracy about Asmongold's hairline. Thank you, Ebonhard out.